Hey everybody, welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm Felicia from SweetGeorgia, and this is Taking Back Friday Live. This is a live stream that we do once a month, every month, on the second Friday of every month. And we just get this time to sort of catch up about all the things that have been happening in and around SweetGeorgia and the studio. Now, I don't know if you can tell, it is getting cold in our house. It's getting cold outside. I have been sick all week. I think you could kind of hear it in my voice. And so I'm hoping that we can make it through the the live stream this week without, you know, having any sort of horrible thing happen. So thank you guys so much for being here. Really, really excited. This is a exciting day and an exciting time, and it's kind of an exciting moment in life right now. You may or may not know that my son, my first child, he's turning 10 tomorrow. It's crazy. So Russell's birthday is tomorrow. It is a Remembrance Day birthday. And I was looking through all of the photos last night, just kind of like looking through all the things that have happened since he turned 10, and looking just at all these old photos and all the things that have happened. And I kind of, on one hand, think, oh my gosh, how did we manage to do all of those things? How did we manage to survive all of that? But at the same time, just seeing like how happy he's been and so many things that have brought him joy and so many things that have been really fun. And it's just been 10 years goes by so fast. Unbelievably quick. And so I just always wonder, like, how quick the next 10 years will go. And yeah, oh, it's too fast. It's actually really too fast. And yeah, it's been a really, really wonderful time. But it made me think a lot about what we're going to talk about today. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is about the website and a lot of changes and things that are happening in and around SweetGeorgia and things like that. And so I thought about how when I started the SweetGeorgia blog back in 2004, it was just me. It was me, and I was writing about my knitting. I was writing about things that I bought at the yarn store, things about, you know, what I was making. I was making these big, you know, giant sweaters out of huge chunky yarn because I didn't have a ton of confidence in my own knitting ability, specifically my own ability to make it to the end of projects. I think it was really, you know, just to be able to finish things. And so I made a bunch of things in big chunky yarn. I wrote about that on the blog and all of that kind of stuff. And it was just me. And I wrote a lot. I wrote maybe like sometimes every day, mostly 3 days a week, that kind of thing. And I started dyeing yarn on the side of that. And then so I started a shop website on the side of the blog website. And then, you know, things changed, and I got married and had kids. And in those years, I decided to sort of consolidate a lot of things because, well, I was very busy. My hands were really full, running around, chasing kids, doing lots of things. And so I consolidated the two websites, the shop and the blog website, into one site. And it was kind of like to make a central focus. So, you know, you don't have to think about where you're going. You just go to this one website and everything is there. But as sort of time went on with this website, I found that we couldn't make the very best shop. There was a sort of always kind of like a compromise. You know, the shop would be what it was and the blog would be what it was, but neither one could be like the best thing that it could possibly be. And so one of the things is that I've been thinking about, like looking back with, you know, specifically being told that we have to move our studio before the end of this year. I spent a lot of time this summer thinking about, you know, what it is that we want to do at SweetGeorgia. What is the future of SweetGeorgia? What it means, what SweetGeorgia is for, what all of this is. And so I spent a lot of time this summer thinking about all of this. And I think that at the absolute core of it, we are still doing the same thing. It's still about the same thing. The core of it is that we're just wanting to bring joy to people's lives through craft and color. And so that's basically it. It's just more joy, more color, more craft. That's basically all what it's for. And so we do this, and we continue to do this by making hand-dyed yarn and spinning fiber that hopefully people enjoy using and making their projects out of. And that's one side of it. And then the other side of it is that we also do this by trying to create educational content to help people learn the skills so that they can make things that they want to make. And so that's the School of SweetGeorgia side of things. And then I reflected back on this main website that we've had since 2004 and thinking about, like, what is this main website and blog? What is it about? And I decided to make some pretty difficult changes about it, and changes that as I was going through the process of making these changes, I really paused several times and I was thinking, oh, should we do this or should we just stop and just continue the way that we're going? But I decided to, like, full on make these changes. And I know that it could be a little bit shocking for people, which is why I wanted to talk about it today. So we basically did, the first thing is we did the major surgery to split the existing website from the shop and the blog, and we've split them into two websites now. So now the shopping part where you can buy the yarns and everything like that is now at shop.sweetgeorgiayarns.com. And then the main website, the main content, blog, all of that kind of stuff is at sweetgeorgiayarns.com. So now there are two websites again. And so the purpose of this is to give the shop the best possible shopping experience. And then on the content side of things is to give the content the best possible reading experience. And so the shop, lots of technology obviously has changed in the past 10 years since we started our online store. And so, you know, being able to take advantage of new technology, the way that shopping can just be so much easier and so much faster on your mobile device and all sorts of things like that. We wanted to be able to take advantage of that to make life easier. When you need to find the yarn in the color that you want in order to make the project that you want, we just want that process to just be so much easier and faster. And so we've rebuilt the website for the shop for that purpose. And so I really, really have to thank my team for this. I know that Teresa and Hoy have spent countless hours working on this. I know Teresa was working late nights and early mornings, and I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning too to just like tweak things on the website and all this kind of stuff. And so the shop site, we soft launched that last Friday. So some of you guys might have noticed, you know, things moving around and things shifting and all sorts of things like that. But now the shop site is there and it's up and running and all of that kind of stuff. And then the content site, we really wanted to change the content site to focus more on sharing projects of things that we've made and how we've made them. Like, for example, I have this cowl, which I absolutely love, and I just posted about this a couple days ago on the website. But this cowl, I made this on my circular sock knitting machine, and it's really, really simple. It's these two tubes that were cranked on the circular sock knitting machine, and then I sewed them together. I joined them together in the center. And I've been wanting to make more of these, and I forgot all the specs of how I made this. I actually had to go back to my old video where I talked about this, and I downloaded the video so I could make a transcript of the video so I could see what I said about how I made this. And this is the problem with me, is I can't remember anything. After I have said it, after the words have left my mouth, I literally forget everything about it. So when I started to write the instructions for this cowl, I was like, I have no idea how many rows I actually cranked. And so I had to go back and count them all and measured it and did all the stuff and wrote down all the notes so that if you want to make something that's similar to this, you can also do that. And if I want to make something similar to this, like if I want to give this as gifts for Christmas or something like that, I'll at least have some instructions to know how I did it. And so this is part of the goal of the website now, is to just record more about the things that we've made and how we made them, including like even this sweater. This is the Halu sweater that's designed by Caitlin Hunter. And, you know, we used a number of different yarns to hold them together. We used a merino silk lace, and I think it was a cash silk fine that held together in order to make the sweater. But none of these details are anywhere, and I talk about them in random videos, and then I don't talk about them again. And so it would just be nice to have a place to store all this stuff. And so that's what the projects area of the website is going to be. And it's going to be fleshed out and built out a little bit more as time goes on. We have a lot of projects to share. And so that's where we're going to focus a lot of our energy and stuff like that. And then finally, I think that my goal is really to make our content site the very, very best source of knowledge and information and inspiration for multi-craft tool makers. I know that you can go to websites that are specifically about knitting, and you can go to websites that are specifically about spinning, and some that are just about weaving, but I have for a long time, I think, tried to sort of deny a lot of those parts of myself that are like not, I don't know. I just try to be just one thing, and it's really hard. I'm not one thing. I am this person who like knits and also dyes yarn and also weaves and also spins and also wants to learn to make socks on a circular sock knitting machine and also wants to learn so many things. And it's all about what are all of the different things that you can do with yarn. Or you can make your own yarn. You can make your own yarn. What kind of yarn can you make? And all of the yarn that you can make and all of the different purposes that they can become. This whole world is just one massive spectrum of what you can do with fiber and yarn. And so that's the part that I want to express, and the part that I want to share, and the part that we want to talk about, and the part that we want to help everybody with. So really, it's just about trying to like make much more helpful content. And I think that finally, we are really actually building this community of multi-craftual makers, which I always kind of talk about, and then never really realized that you're all out there. And I was showing Russell last night, because he's asking, he's like, when can I get on Discord? And I was telling, oh, SweetGeorgia, we have a Discord channel. We have a Discord server. We've been doing Discord for almost a year now, and we have almost 900 members on our Discord community who are all talking about whatever they're weaving and spinning, and they're weaving with handspun and crocheting and doing all sorts of different projects. And it's just been this wonderful community and world of people who love all of these different crafts. So I'm really, really excited to do that and really support that community with more information, more projects, more knowledge, more inspiration, more all of these kinds of things. So that's what it's kind of been all about. Thank you. Discord is such a wonderful community. I'm really glad that we started that, because it's really been fun and just really easy to tap on the icon on my phone and just, you know, see this whole community of everybody sharing all the things that they've made. So just so I do some of the housekeeping things that I need to talk about before I share some other things that I'm working on and stuff like that. Yeah, I do want to just kind of remind everybody, yeah, the shop now is at shop.sweetgeorgiayarns.com. There might be some broken links. There might be some, you know, products that are missing that haven't been migrated over. We are continually hunting for bugs and fixing things as we move along. But right now there is a sweater yarn sale going on. So the sweater season yarn sale is going on until next Tuesday. Tuesday, November 14th is when it ends. And it is 30% off right now, all DK weight and worsted weight yarn. And that is in the shop right now. And you don't need a coupon code for that. It gets automatically applied. So if you actually go to the website, it says shop.sweetgeorgiayarns.com, and in the navigation bar, there's a tab that says sale. And if you hit the sale button, it shows you all the yarns that are on sale. It's so easy. So that's that part of it. The second part is like kind of a housekeeping thing that I do need to mention, because with our old online store, I know many of you guys might have purchased patterns or downloads or files and things like that, and you're wondering where all of that stuff has gone. So we are keeping that stuff on the old website at this time, so that you have a chance to log in to your account And then download all of your files. Download everything that you have previously purchased so that you have a copy of it for yourself. And so we're going to also keep that open until the end of November 14th. So basically, we've sent out an email about that. But basically, you go to sweetgeorgiayarns.com/my-account and then log in, and then everything should be there. And then as well, we have those SSK loyalty points. Those have been migrated over to the new store. Any store credits, gift cards that you've had have also been migrated over to the new store. So nothing has been lost. Everything has been moved over to the new store. So that is that part of it. What else should I mention first? Should I talk about studio move? Should we just mention some deadlines? Okay, so for the holiday and studio move, just as a reminder, these are kind of the dates that we're working with. But we are going to be moving, like physically moving all of the stuff out of our existing studio and moving it to the new studio starting December 11th. And so because we're moving it December 11th and like staff, everybody's going to be in different places. Some are going to be here, some are going to be there. Stuff is going to be here, stuff is going to be there. We are saying that any pickups that you want to do for any orders, the pickups are going to be by appointment only. So you just let us know. And then we can tell you where we're going to be and which side we're going to be on at that time. And then we close the studio. We do this every year, every winter break between Christmas and New Year's, we close the studio. So the studio is going to be closed from December 22nd until January 1st. And then we will reopen on January 2nd in the new location. And so we're hoping that all of that is still going to be good and all of that. So just to remind you, for Canada Post shipping deadlines, they said international orders have to be done by December 1st, US orders have to be done by December 8th, and Canadian orders have to be done by December 20th. This is all for in-stock items, and this is for us to be able to ship it to you so that you receive it in time for the holidays. So that is the chunk that I need to let you guys know about for the holiday stuff and the move stuff and the dates to remember and all these kinds of things. So that is that part of it. And then, I wanted to tell you a little bit about other things that have been happening on that website. So the thing that got published this morning is a thing about these sister tea towels or these sister kitchen towels, and that we wove as part of a course that we filmed with Laura Fry about sectional warping. And so I wrote this whole big thing about the sectional warping class that we just launched on the School of SweetGeorgia. And so if you don't know what a sectional warp beam is, it's basically a beam that replaces your existing warp beam on a weaving loom. And it allows you to sort of wind the warp of your weaving onto your loom, not as one big chunk, not as one big wide chunk. So if your weaving project is 26 inches wide, you're not warping 26 inches all at the same time. What you're doing with a sectional warp beam is you're warping 1 inch at a time. So you wind on 1 inch and then you move it over and you wind on the next inch, then you move it over and you wind on the next inch, and so on and so on and so on. And so there's lots and lots of benefits to being able to do it just one section at a time. Like if you can imagine trying to warp a loom that has a big giant wide project and you're trying to hold on to the warp as you're beaming the warp, you're going to have tension problems, right? Like the warp ends on the edges are going to be a little bit tighter than the ones in the middle, and you're just going to have all these things that you have to manage and stuff like that. And so this is where sectional warping comes in really handy. You can wind on wide warps, and you can also sort of stop and pause in the middle of your process. So if you're winding on one big warp all at the same time, you can't really pause and stop and go and cook dinner or something like that halfway through. You have to finish your process. And so that part of it can be a little bit challenging. You need a block of time to be able to sit and do that. And so with a sectional warp beam, you can basically just wind on 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, and stop, and then go do something else, and then come back and then do a couple more inches. So it allows you a little bit more flexibility, and it also allows you to wind on much longer warps really, really efficiently. So you can wind on like 10 yards or 20 yards or 100 yards or whatever it is you want to do when you're weaving your project. And so this is something that we asked Laura Fry to come and teach us how to do, because I have a couple of sectional warp beams, but no one has ever taught me how to do it. And I think that there's like maybe one book where you might be able to learn how to do this, but there's very little information out there about how to use this very significant piece of equipment. And so being able to sit with Laura and watch her do this entire process step by step, watch all of her hand actions, being able to do it myself, and practice all of this over and over and over again over like a width of something like 30 inches wide or 28 inches wide, is incredibly, incredibly helpful. So we filmed all of this so that everybody could have the same chance to be able to see how this all works, because again, not very much information about this kind of tool. And I have been told by many different weavers who do sectional warping that once you start doing it this way, you will never go back to warping the regular way or the way that you originally learned how to warp, which is like winding on a warping board and then transferring it to your loom and all this kind of stuff. It can be made so much more efficient. And so yes, that's the thing that we just launched in the class, and we talked about making these sister tea towels, which is basically the idea that we put on one big long 10-yard long warp, and then both, like, well, actually a whole bunch of people, Greta and Anita and Teresa and Tabitha and I, all wove a tea towel ourselves, and we just changed the weft colors. And just by changing the weft color, you can just create all completely different towels. They look completely different, but they're still related, and so that's why they're called sisters. They look a little bit related. Is basically the idea. And so that was really, really a wonderful thing to do. And so that's the latest course that's just launched in the school. And I encourage you to check that out if you are at all interested in learning about sectional warping, and if this might be something that would be good for your own weaving process. This is very good for people who maybe want to weave longer warps, production weaving, want to weave more pieces on the same warp, all of this kind of idea. So you can check that out as well. And the other thing that's happening in the school right now is the SOS, the Handspun Scraps Weave Along. So this is being hosted by Debbie Held, who is our instructor for many of the spinning classes that we've done in the school. And so she teaches everything from spinning with an e-spinner to working with blending boards to spinning textured yarns. And so with all of the spinning that we do, you know, we're often learning and we're spinning a little bit of fiber here and a little bit here. And so we have these mixed up skeins of like, I don't know, 30 grams of yarn of this and 50 grams of that yarn and all this kinds of stuff. And so her goal over November is to kind of get you to pull out all of your hand spun scrap yarn and put it all on a rigid heddle loom and weave with it and just see what happens. And experiment and play, and just know that like warping with a rigid heddle loom is so fast. You can be weaving within 45 minutes or an hour and already start to make things. And weaving with your yarn gives you this really important experience and knowledge of how does your fabric feel? What would you change differently if you were to spin this yarn again? Do you like the fabric that's being produced here? All of this kind of information is stuff that you can learn when you actually go and use your handspun yarn. So that's what that is all about. And we are having conversations in Discord about that as well. And so you can find there's a handspun in weaving with handspun channel in our Discord community where everybody's talking about what they're making right now on their rigid heddle looms. So that is all happening as well. So those are two things. And then I wanted to mention two books as well. So the first book is actually something that I don't physically have in my hands because it's at the studio and I didn't want to go to the studio this week and, get anybody else sick. So I've been at home all week. And but the book is at the studio in my office, and it is Tabitha's book that she had worked on for a long time and is wonderful. It is called A Year of Knitting Stitches, and it's a stitch a day perpetual calendar. And so it's just come out. You can find it on Amazon. So Tabitha just posted about it on her Instagram this morning in her stories. And so it's a year of knitting stitches, a stitch a day, perpetual calendar. And this is like a great idea for like a holiday gift for a knitter. And you have a perpetual calendar that sits on your desk, and then you can just change the pages every day, and every day is a different stitch pattern. Crazy. So many stitch patterns, 365 stitch patterns. So that really is wonderful, and that came out this year. And so congratulations to Tabitha about that. And yeah, I hope that that's something that if you're thinking about like a holiday gift for another knitter, this might be something great. So that's the first book. And then the second book that I have is, this is one that came to me from Robin Hall here, and it's called The Littlest Weaver. This is a kid's book, and I read it with my daughter, and at the end of the story, I was totally bawling. I was crying. This book is beautiful. It's beautifully illustrated. The illustrations are done by Stella Lim. And let's see if I can find the picture where she's weaving. Oh, there's a nice picture. So there is the little girl at her loom weaving. And it is a story really about processing grief through the process of weaving. And so as you're weaving and you're remembering and you're working through all of your feelings, you're putting it into the weaving. And it seems like it's, I mean, it's easy to read. It's a kid's story. Nina can, yeah, we can definitely read it. But at the same time, there's this message behind it all, this feeling behind it all, that you can process so much of your life experience through the act of weaving. Oh, it's making me sad already. But yeah, this is a really, really lovely book. So if you have anybody in your family who's like, who would like be at sort of this reading level, who might enjoy being exposed to the fiber arts or weaving or knitting or craft or something like that, just this idea that you can process how you feel through things that you make is a really, really beautiful message, and one that I think that you can get out of this like very subtly, and also just have a really beautiful book to read. It's just beautiful illustrations and beautiful text. And so this I'm really, really happy to share with you. This is Robin Hall and illustrated by Stella Lim, The Littlest Weaver. Really, really lovely book. So those are the things that I wanted to talk about before I talk about the things that I've been making. Now, I have one thing that I want to share with you that I'm actually quite excited about. You guys may know that last year I was spinning all of this yarn. I spun 6 different colorways of yarn because I was planning to make a night shift shawl. This is designed by Andrea Mowry. It's the big version of the shift. I'd made the shift cowl, which is like the little triangle shaped cowl that you wear. But then she has a large version, which is the night shift, which is a big giant shawl version. So I thought, I'm going to spin 6 skeins of yarn. I'm going to make this thing. And I started knitting the night shift maybe 5 or 6 times. And every single time I ripped it out because I didn't like how the colors were mixing and blending. And I got so much feedback and advice from people that you should just keep going. Just keep going with it and just let it happen. And I couldn't. I was just like obsessing too much about how the colors were interacting, and so I kept taking it apart, and then I stopped altogether. And so then this past couple of weeks, I started again, but this time I started a little bit differently. So this is one of the original colors. That was the one that I had spun for the project. This one is Tanzanite, and this is all, I think it's all Blueface Leicester. I think. Actually, no, I think it's Polworth and Silk. Polworth and Silk in Tanzanite. So I spun this for the original shawl. And then I spun this recently. And this is Trail Runner. This is one of our newer colorways for spinning fiber. And I spun this, and it's a beautiful 3-ply yarn. And originally, I thought, oh, I was going to make this and use this for socks, for cranking on my circular sock knitting machine. But then when I combed it up and I felt this yarn. It just feels so, so nice and so soft. I was like, oh, it would be a waste to put it into socks. I should really make it into something I can wear and show, and it's nice. I did wind these cones on this cone winder here. You can see that's the Sunfire cone winder. I love it. But yeah, this yarn, when I finally knit it together with this one, I feel like this one was really bright, really saturated, and it needed something that was a little bit more toned down in order to make it work, right? And so this is further than I've gotten ever. And that's how it's looking so far. The mixing and the blending of these two colorways on that night shift. And I know that with the instructions, the original instructions are like you do this one section that has kind of like one dot and then another section that has thicker dots. Yeah. One section here and then a single and a double and a single and a double and so on, right? You have some bigger dots and some smaller dots. And then you're supposed to switch colorways for each section, but I decided not to switch colors, and I'm just kind of continuing on with these two colors. I do think that the next color switch I want to make is to add some like salted caramel in there, something that's like a little bit warm. Yeah, to kind of warm it up a little bit. But I feel like what it needed is it needed this Trail Runner colorway. It needed it to be a little bit more muted and subdued and something to contrast with something that was like brighter and more saturated. Using like two super saturated ones, it was too much for me. And I think that this is what the answer needed to be. It needed to be one saturated, one more muted. So one could be highlighted and one could be kind of background. So in any case, I am going to keep going with this. I actually like it now. And so I'm happy that that's all happening. I should look at more night shift photos, I think, of what you guys have all made. And then the next thing is that because last month was October and Socktober, I was making socks. I was making so many socks. I have not taken really proper photos of it, but I love these. These are my socks that I cranked with my Cordale 3-ply handspun yarn that was spun from that beachside brunch colorway. I absolutely love them. I love how they're not the same. I love how, yeah, the colors fade differently. They look like they could be mittens, but they're not. They're actually socks. They're short-ish socks. I cranked these multiple times. I kept ripping them out and then restarting because I was trying to figure out exactly how many rows to crank in the foot and the leg in order to make them fit. Yeah, so I did them a couple of times, but they turned out actually super great. So that's one. I did put Lycra in all of my socks. I've started to do that. I've put Lycra in all of my socks, and I found the Lycra online on Etsy. I feel like it's the only place where you can get it. It's this one shop, and I think it's called Sock Cranker shop on Etsy, and I'll put a link when we do the show notes and everything like that. But this is the one that I originally purchased. This is the Lycra. Actually, no, this is not the Lycra that I originally purchased. This is the Lycra that I originally purchased. I purchased this from the Crank Inn at Erlbacher, so it was purple. And then I thought, well, I can't put purple Lycra in every single sock that I make, so that's why I went to Etsy and I got this. So I got the beige color, and I also got a black color of Lycra. And so this Lycra we talked about before, it's super stretchy, and you just add it as a carry-on with your yarn, and it gives the socks more elasticity. It helps the sock return back to the original shape a little bit easier. It kind of just pulls it back in and cinches it in. So I've been adding Lycra to all of the socks that I've been making. This is another pair, also with handspun, that I made last month that just needs to be grafted. The toe just needs to be grafted and it will be ready to go. These ones are a little bit more soft. This is older handspun that I spun with that. And then this is a pair of socks that I cranked that is actually the mohair silk sock that we carry, that I put on a cone. So that's the mohair silk sock in campfire colorway. And I put that together with lycra as well. And you can see the appearance of the lycra. You can't really notice the appearance of the lycra in the handspun socks because it's kind of buried and hidden by the nuance and the sort of the fleckiness of handspun yarn altogether. But in the sock here, where the color is a little bit more smooth and everything like that, you can definitely see the appearance of the lycra. And so that is the beige lycra that's in there. I wasn't sure which color would be better to put in here because, you know, putting purple lycra in your campfire sock, I don't know if that was going to work. And then putting black might have been too dark. So that's why I went with the beige. But I kind of, I wish that there was maybe one more color of lycra that I could put in here. But I think it also adds like an interesting overall look and appearance to that as well. So that is the mohair silk sock with some lycra added. So can you use the lycra for hand knit as well? I don't see why not. I think it just requires a little bit of management, like it's yarn management. You'd have to be really, really clear about, you know, keeping it separate, keep holding it together and keeping it separate from your sock yarn, because I feel like it could get tangled very easily. Yeah, it could get tangled very easily. So the way that I put it into the CSM, into the machine itself, is I have a separate carrier for the lycra itself. It's called a lycra bar, and it holds the lycra away from the sock yarn so that they don't get tangled together. But I think that if you were maybe sitting in a stationary place where your lycra was in one spot and your yarn was on another, maybe yarn carrier, and then being able to knit from those two at the same time to knit a sock, I think that would be good. But I think stuffing this in a bag, a knitting project bag with your socks, maybe not the best idea. It would get tangled because it's just so stretchy and springy and everything. So that is basically all of the stuff that I have around me to talk about today. And I'm going to be posting about these things on the website so that we can share a little bit more about how everything is made, maybe the specs of, you know, how thick I spun and plied all of this yarn for these socks. And I want to take some really, really nice photos of these as well because they're just so pretty. I can't get over how pretty they are. This was my ultimate goal, really. You know, when I really learned how to spin, I wanted to make handspun socks, and I kind of put it off for a long time until I saw Rachel Smith's collection of handspun socks that she brought when she taught the class spinning for socks for the school. And just seeing all of these handspun socks together in a pile, I was just like, that's what I want to make. And so being able to do that now by just learning how to spin the yarn that I want in order to get exactly what I want, and then being able to crank it in the machine has been just like the combination of the most fun ever. So I absolutely love this. Fantastic. So I am going to leave it there, and I will see you guys next month. It's going to be December. Oh, yes. Fantastic. Okay, so it's going to be December next month, and we'll meet back here second Friday of the month. And I saw that Christina, you're saying, or Nancy, you're saying that yes, the internet is breaking up a little bit here, and so I think I'm going to actually do this from the new studio. We'll try and do this from the new studio. Maybe you guys can get a sneak peek of the new studio before we actually move everything into it. It'll be completely empty, but I know that internet is installed there, so maybe we'll try that next time. But for now, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for supporting Sweet Georgia for all of these years and reading about the things that we make and seeing the things that we do and using the yarns that we dye. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you guys in the next one. All right, bye for now.